Not over Morgan for Lions opener, and at the top, Reds rival tune for £85 million striker Ekitike. Right, let's have a look at the Guardian's back page. A really good discussion. RNA held talks with Trump's son over Turnberry Open. Yeah, Turnberry last held the Open in 2009. McIlroy risks the Blues for Claret Jug, and they have a Sweden versus England special. Emma Hayes, Swedes are a big threat. Lucy Bronze were all under pressure, and Jonathan Newspeace covers no luxury for Lionesses. And in the Telegraph Sports section, well, they smash on Rory McIlroy ahead of the start of the Open. Rory is sitting pretty, and Newcastle and Liverpool in transfer war to sign Ekitike. A number of papers carrying that story as well. Welcome once again to Carl and to Riyadh. Good to see you both. OK, let's start off with the transfer news. Ugo Ekitike, a man in very sharp focus, especially if you are a Liverpool fan or a Newcastle fan. And let's have a look at the Telegraph on this one. It's a piece by Luke Edwards, Northern football writer. And so the situation here, Eintracht Frankfurt, ultimately, they're now in an increasingly powerful position because they hold the cards. Effectively, we could have not just a tug of war, effectively an auction for this man that they value so highly. Carl, what's your sort of take on the state of play right now? Where does this transfer go?
Very good question. I think you're completely correct in using the term auction or a bidding war, shall we say. It very much looks as if Newcastle are in the next stage of their development. And while they perhaps haven't got two or three of their transfer targets, Brian Mbeumo or João Pedro, they are very much looking to strengthen their forward places. Hugo Ekitike fits that in theory if Alexander Isak is leaving. Now, the thing there is Alexander Isak is not leaving Newcastle United unless someone ponies up at least 120 million to begin a conversation. I believe Isak is of such a talent that the fee could go up to 140 million. So it appears that Liverpool, who are among several clubs in Europe, including Real Madrid, who've been very interested in Isak, made some sort of approach. And then once Newcastle went, absolutely not for sale, not unless you have 120 million burning in your back pocket, went, fair enough, let's go get Hugo Ekitike, which is fine, because both of these strikers are phenomenal threats in the transition. You give them the ball in open space, they are phenomenal. They're both volume shooters. They both also like drifting over to left-hand space, which sort of, you raise your eyebrow there about Newcastle's supposed interest in there, because Ekitike and Isak in the same team, I'm not sure you're going to get the best out of them. So if Ekitike goes to Newcastle, that might be a Isak successor. But where does that leave Isak? I'm not entirely sure. It's all layers within layers.
Yeah. Well, I do wonder, actually, because it's all related. Riyadh, do you think this is Liverpool trying to unsettle Newcastle over Isak? Is it almost like a dummy play? We're going for him, but ultimately we want to try and force the situation where, well, OK, you buy Ekitike, but we'll come in for Isak. And do you think, Carl's made the point there about, how he fits or maybe doesn't fit Newcastle. Where do you think he fits better?
I think you have a cynical mind there, David. I actually share it. I can certainly imagine a scenario where there's a degree of kidology involved in this, and it's possibly, shall we say, the messaging that goes to Isak during this scenario. Look, if you're not going to kick up a stink at your end, we're looking at other targets now. Whether or not that's the case, who knows at this stage? But what we can say is, sort of, Ekitike, he's a fantastic player. He's 22 goals last season, 15 in the league. He gets assists as well. I remember him coming through and it not working out at PSG, but at Frankfurt, he's showing himself to be the kind of player that is going to be in demand. Now we have this chess game with Liverpool and Newcastle, and what's going to happen for Newcastle. It's a little bit of a battle on two fronts. I know that they've been outwardly briefing that, they would want him as competition for Isak, not strictly as a replacement. But if you're Liverpool looking at this guy in the market, he is a signing that more than carries his weight on his own merits. I think we all know Isak would be the preferred option. He is Premier League proven. He's had a fantastic season. I don't I usually express a degree of skepticism about some of these fees, but 100 million plus for him feels fair on the balance of what he's done last season. I also think that for Eddie Howe, there is an absolute imperative that he keeps him, as much for the messaging as anything else. What does it say about Newcastle and their project, their ambition, if they're losing this marquee player? I think that would be, if he stays, it represents a great summer for Newcastle, irrespective of who comes in. If he goes, it represents a bad summer, irrespective of whom they replace him with. So for them, the onus on keeping him is absolutely enormous.
Carl, I just wonder, £86 million is what Eintracht want for him. And given the fact that they've got two big Premier League clubs interested, you can understand why they would hold out for that. Is he a risk worth taking for that amount of money, no matter who buys him?
Yes, absolutely. I cannot stress enough how talented Ekitike is. Absolutely agree with previous points about how he didn't have the easiest route after going through PSG, but he has matured. He's thickened out physically, I will say, and he's getting better at riding contact with some of the bigger defenders in the Bundesliga. But the potential there, the goal scoring potential there, Hugo Ekitike is a player that I think the only reason why there isn't a bigger bidding war is because this 86 million, let's call it 100 million euros, that fee is perhaps a little bit too rich for the likes of Chelsea and Manchester United at this point in time. Strikers aren't cheap, but Ekitike is, in my eyes, 2 thumbs up, a good striker.
Gets the vote of confidence and then some from Carl. OK, let's switch focus and talk about Marcus Rashford. So criticism from Teddy Sheringham today, and now this: Juventus are interested in Marcus Rashford. According to Sky in Italy, they've begun to explore the conditions of a potential deal for the Manchester United forward. Barcelona also keen, as we know, but have made no approach at this stage. Rashford has publicly spoken of his desire to play for Barcelona. OK, before we get to Teddy Sheringham, the Juventus interest. I'm going to come back to you, Carl, because, you know, obviously this is very much your patch. Exploring the conditions of a potential deal is the wording. What do you make of it?
I mean, that's a vague inquiry, is it not? That's texting someone going, if this is available for sale, let me know. That's me trying to get Oasis tickets, texting a friend, shall we say.
OK, all right. But what we're seeing here is, obviously, you know, it feels that, you know, Marcus Rashford, time is starting now to run out. I mean, I know that we've got until, you know, the end of August, beginning of September for the transfer window to close. But Barcelona, they've made no formal approach at this point. And Riyadh, you know, Juventus showing a little bit of interest. What is it going to take for Rashford to get the exit he wants? I mean, I wonder what Teddy Sheringham thinks of this one, by the way. But to go to Juventus, would that make sense for the player?
Absolutely. I think anything that gets Marcus Rashford out of Manchester United at this stage is a good thing for him. Should he have agitated in the way that he did to leave is an entirely different question. I would probably say at the outset that I agree entirely with Teddy Sheringham's assessment of this. I don't really see how the circumstances of his situation at United, I don't see how that necessitates a move to join Barcelona. I think certainly he did well on loan at Aston Villa, but we're talking about a substantial amount of time now since we've seen Rashford play in a sustained manner at his best level. I'd love to see him move on, playing his football regularly, enjoying himself. Juventus historically is a great side. I think that would be a good level for him to get the move. I think he's probably going to have to be realistic about his salary. I think when we're talking about a salary in excess of 300 grand a week, is he worth that at the moment? No, he obviously has a contract that entitles to him it entitles him to that level currently, but if he wants to be playing regular football, then he needs to set his priorities, and accordingly, I would say the fact that we're now in the middle of July and a deal hasn't been wrapped up, and we've known his situation over at United for months now. If I was Rashford, I'd probably be a little bit concerned. I can't see where he naturally fits in at Barcelona. I think they've got Rafinha on the left wing, which I still think is Rashford's best position. He's just signed a new contract there. I think he's in considerably better form. Does he displace Lewandowski up front? No. So I'm curious why Barcelona would be interested. Well, I can see why they're interested in him, but I don't think they'd be looking at him as a starting option, and therefore that salary request needs to come down if that's the sticking point.
Carl, the Telly Sheringham, I have to say, reading the piece and reading the specific quotes, then watching the interview in full, he does not hold back, does he? He's saying it's soul-destroying. He says, I hope Rashford doesn't get the move he's hankering for. What are your thoughts in terms of just the tone, the specific tone that he's used? Is that harsh, or do you think he's bang on with his comments?
This is Terry Sheringham. This is a gentleman who calls a spade a spade. He speaks from the heart, and he feels affronted by the current goings on at Manchester United. I would say, as a counterpoint, if he hopes Marcus Rashford doesn't get the move to Barcelona, what does he hope the move? Because Manchester United have made it very, very clear that they would like to move on Rashford, as well as the other 4 individuals who are in you can call it the bomb squad, you can call it the loft if you're from French football, the unwanted at the moment. And Marcus Rashford's shirt number, the number 10, has been handed over to Matheus Cunha. So he has to leave somewhere. And as we've spoken about his wages, the only clubs that can really afford him are some of the biggest clubs in the world and clubs that are playing Champions League football. If you are of the opinion that if you're a Manchester United fan and you want Marcus Rashford gone, it's probably in your interest that Barcelona retain some sort of interest in him, because that's a likely avenue there. When you talk about Barcelona, it's also very important you talk about Luis Diaz. We know Barcelona have interest in him as well. Luis Diaz has also been subject to a transfer bid inquiry, however you want to call it, from Bayern Munich as well. This is a really interesting time in European football in that there's not too many strikers, and they all come with a 60 to 80, perhaps even more million price tag. But there's a surplus, as there is, of left-sided wingers, Marcus Rashford's best position, that many have said, which makes movement a little bit difficult. That's probably why Marcus Rashford, when he was talking to streamers in Spain, talked about how he's learning more about playing centre forward. I think if he does go to Barcelona, which is no guarantee, he might be sharing playing time with Lewandowski as a backup number 9, as much as being a left-sided option next to Rafinha and others. There's so many moving parts to this, and I'd thoroughly expect this to run on and on and on right up until the end of the transfer window. Yeah, and a few others in similar positions: Garnacho, Sancho, Antony, Tyrrell, Malacia, the ones that you refer to there, Carl. OK, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in the Mail. Riyadh at Royal Portrush, and we'll focus on his piece. Bring it on. Rory vows to embrace the pressure of trying to win the Open on home soil. Stay with us. Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to the Athletics Manchester United correspondent Carl Anker, and also the Daily Mail's chief sports feature writer Riyadh Al Samurai. OK, we're going to talk Women's Euros and head to The Guardian, who've got a Sweden versus England special with Emma Hayes, Lucy Bronze and friend of the show Jonathan Liu all featured here. So Riyadh, how big a threat, as Emma Hayes said, are Sweden, especially given this incredible unbeaten run that they're on and the way that they dismantled Germany in topping their group?
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly dangerous match. I think we've obviously all, as is pretty standard for a major championship, sort of gone through undulations with this side so far, obviously since the defeat to France, when our kind of, let's just say, our expectations went through the floor, and it's obviously improved a lot against the Netherlands and against Wales. So on paper, you might make the argument that the Lionesses our favourite, but Emma Hayes makes some really good points in there. So aside from the sort of 15-game unbeaten run, you look at the Swedish team on paper, and I think she makes the point that if you were to put them pound for pound with sort of against the teams they're up against in the competition, they might be around about seventh. But clearly the reality is different, and they've also moved on a huge amount since they met in the Euros in 2022, and Lionesses won 4-0. It's moved on a lot. As the sum of their parts is really quite impressive. We know that they've got a big threat from set pieces. They crushed Germany in the group stages, so it is going to be a tough match. But we have seen this quite impressive progress from Wiegmann's team in Switzerland, and I can remember coming on the show a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about it. We had the three retirements prior to the tournament, and it really felt like a knife edge moment for Wiegmann. Is this going to be the tournament too far where it all imploded? And if I'm honest, I thought it probably would be, but the performance against the Netherlands, I think was superb. Wales, they were clearly the stronger side, and that one went a little bit more with the form book, we should say. But they have turned it around. They have got that escalating belief, and they have got an excellent squad. So when those stars align, you do look at it and think that they're in a very strong position. I would also say they've got the favourable side of the draw, given that Spain are on the other side. So this is an absolutely enormous test for them. If they come through it with the momentum that they would take from it, I wouldn't necessarily want to put any limits on where it's going to go from there.
There's this phrase that's come up quite a lot, a mantra, Carl, which is a proper England performance. We've heard Lucy Bronze talk about it. We heard, obviously, Sarina Wiegmann mention it. What does that mean to you? And is there any danger that it's kind of overused? It could be something that can come back to bite you a little bit?
My interpretation of it is proper execution of what Sarina wants from her players. This England team has, to my mind, one of the highest ceilings of everyone at the Euros. It's to them in Spain, as far as I'm concerned. However, the floor, when players aren't focusing on their jobs at hand, you can get results like against France. And I think proper England is the camp saying, pay attention, do your jobs properly, do proper England stuff. So a mantra to lock in, as the Gen Z parlance is absolutely fine. This matchup is going to be fascinating because Sweden have become a team that have gone about eliminating unforced errors, whereas England seem to be a little bit prone to them. I think Nikita Paris, in the last 2 or 3 days, has been excellent talking about the double-edged sword that is Lauren James, who is just a phenomenal football player, but there are questions over whether or not she's better as a number 10 or on the left, and what happens when the ball is lost and Lauren James is in very, very advanced areas. I think the interplay between James and Ella Toon, if Ella Toon does start, is going to be really, really key. And I'm really impressed by the strength of Sweden's fullbacks as well. This is going to be a great match. I highly recommend everyone watches this. Yeah,
we'll definitely be keeping across it for sure. Let's talk about something else which is on tomorrow, and we're showing live on Sky Sports. That's, of course, the Open. And Riyadh, you've written a piece from where you are, Raw Port Rush, about to see 4 days of cracking links golf, I'm sure. Bring it on. Using the word pressure. Now, interesting, that word, especially when it's, talking about Rory McIlroy. How much pressure is there on this man, given he's at home, but given he's now done the career Grand Slam? Do you sense that, it's a little bit more of a relaxed Rory McIlroy that'll be teeing it up with Tommy Fleetwood and Justin Thomas tomorrow?
I say it is, but I very much doubt it. I wrote a column about Rory McIlroy last weekend and the expectation, and I kind of put forward my theory. I don't think any sportsman from the UK in certainly in recent years has had as much sustained pressure as him. And we've seen it with Lewis Hamilton, but we make mitigations for the car that he's driving. We had it in absolutely astronomical levels for Andy Murray, but a third of his career was lost to injury if you look to sort of the last 7 or 8 years. And then you have Andy Murray, then you have Rory McIlroy, who 4 times a year for 18 seasons now, pretty much, has faced the question: is Rory going to win? If he doesn't win, is it a disaster? And we got to the point. If we look at Pinehurst, we look at LA Country Club, we look at St Andrews, majors where Rory McIlroy would finish in the top 2, 3, 4 positions, and they would be described as failures. So this man is under constant expectation, and now he's playing in an Open at Portrush, where we shouldn't forget in 2019 he went there, and on the first tee, his first shot, he carved out of bounds on the left. He took a quadruple bogey 8 and missed the cut. And that entire week, we'd been talking about Rory as the overwhelming favourite to win. Now he goes back. Now this is an interesting scenario. He has a putting coach, Brad Faxon, who is a legend of the game in the US, but he's also quite indiscreet. And he's mentioned this week that Rory has twice played that first hole and twice gone out of bounds on Monday and Tuesday. I don't know if Rory will thank him for pointing that out, but he will. He is the main show in town here again. He is the reigning Masters champion. He is the world number 2. He comes here on the back of quite a prolonged period of difficult form, but there are certainly some very strong signs of him turning that around in Scotland last week. I was over there covering it. His mood has improved. He says he's got his motivation back. He's certainly got a spring in his step, but he comes into this tournament where his face is on every billboard. He is on the back page of every newspaper. He is the person who the 260,000 fans who are going to be there across the week. He's the guy most of them are coming to watch, and I am really interested to see how he can handle that, because he has worn the expectation heavily. He described it earlier this week as like being on a hamster wheel, the relentlessness of professional golf, and now he comes into this Open where all eyes are on him. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how he gets on, but in his favour is he does appear to be playing well, except for that first hole at Portrush.
OK, we've got literally 30 seconds to speak about the Lions. Apologies, Carl, you're going to have to be super concise here. Confirmation, of course, of Andy Farrell's selection for the first test against the Wallabies on Good Morning Sports Sounds from 7. All the talk about Tom Curry coming in, but Owen Farrell and Henry Pollock missing out, Carl.
Totally makes sense. Owen Farrell's very much viewed as a dressing room element rather than someone who's going to contribute to the first test. It very much seems that this is going to be a Lions that is going to be very, very, very physical, a lot of running power, which is, that's a very good way to play against Australia. Very much looking forward to it. Yeah, well, we will see, because the first of 3 tests, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, but definitely a big chance this for the Lions to come back with some silverware. Well, thank you very much indeed, guys. Really appreciate your time. If you missed any of the show, another chance to see Back Pages tonight at hour. The show also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your pods.